In this next section, representatives of the Maralinga Djaritja people and anthropologist Scott Kane would like to explain to you the importance of the relationship between the people and the lands. So please listen carefully and pay attention to their instructions and guidance.
My name's Scott Kane. I've worked in the community here since 1985. I do a lot of the heritage clearances, which have determined the direction of many of these seismic lines that you'll be working on.
I'm Bruce Hogan. I was born and reared in the desert here, where your drillings and things going to take place in that thing. And I lived all my life in that area, despite travelling on foot. No camels, carts anywhere.
No clothes?
Nothing, no clothes. It's just a like natural thing, you know. And actually we was the last, second last people that
they were, yeah.
Roaming around that country.
And I'll interrupt. Bruce's family were living only at the time about 150 kilometres east of Oak Valley at a waterhole they call Pirinya, and the survey parties from the Maralinga atomic tests came out and actually moved them on because they didn't know people were still living in that area, even though the atomic testing had already taken place. And Keith here, he was born to the south of the country that Bruce is from, and his family moved into Rodinia.
My name is Keith Peters, and my family was born in Rodinia. I'm the second generation, I think. I heard a lot about Rodinia mission and how the mission was closed before the atomic blast went on at Maralinga. People were forced to leave the mission and went to Adelaide and settled there in the late 50s, 50s. I was born in the 50s, and I've learned from old people, and my mother and family told me that they had come from there.
Ada Hart has a fascinating story. She walked out of the desert from the northwest when she was a young girl. Margaret May's lived here, God knows how long, forever. Her country's further to the northwest, and Mabel, at the end, her husband came from country just to the west of the area that you'll be working in, and her own country's to the north of the Maralinga lands.
We've been here a long time, We've come from Rodinia to Rodinia Tank, and after that, Taniyalada, and we've been come back.
When we're born in that country, we become that country. We belong to that country. And we own that country, and the country owns us. And looking after country and caring for country is a essential life, one number life.
Because the traditional belief is that you own the country where your body first touches the ground, and exactly as Keith's saying, because you are then the country and the country is you, if oil companies, mining companies come out and damage that country, It also damages the person.
Yep.
So when we do the clearances, we go out and try and pick the paths where the work that you'll do does the least damage. So there is an expectation on the workers to keep that spirit, just to stick on the tracks that have been cleared, not to go off, not to go looking for things that aren't any of their business. Just quietly go about your work, follow the tracks, do your job, quietly respect the country as you do it, and basically there'll be no harm done.
When we interview people to come and work for us, we expect people to respect us and have that relationship together and work and live. We all want to live together,
As we mentioned before, Bruce is born in country. Now you get your country, according to Western Desert law, Aboriginal law, in two primary ways. The first is where you were born and actually touch the ground, and that point of touch is your link to that country. It's a two-way thing. You belong to the country belongs to you. That is the core of your country. Your country is then defined, its boundaries are then defined by the distance your family travels. Now they'll travel with you as a baby, and at the point at which your umbilical cord as a baby dries and falls off, that is basically the end of your country. So in the nomadic round, while a child's only 8-10 days old, its country is defined. Now the country is a deeply personal one, both through its umbilical cord and the point at which its own blood touches the ground. Basically where the mother bleeds, the child is born. That is the relationship. So that is a very deeply embedded relationship which has a personal and a spiritual component. Now that spiritual component is learnt through life when both girls, but primarily boys, get to a certain age and are initiated into the secrets, the religious secrets of the landscape. Now those religious secrets are manifest in the landscape, and they express themselves in ways that which non-Aboriginal people probably find hard to believe. It might be a sand dune, it might be a creek, it might be a small tree, it might be a magnificent physical structure like Ayers Rock. You never know. And as non-Aboriginal people, you won't know. Only Aboriginal people know. Now the power within their sacred tradition rests in its secrecy. The belief is that there are huge supernatural powers in the landscape, but only those that are initiated through the proper rituals and ritual education will ever know those powers. Now, because they know the power, they know the religious beliefs that gives rise to the power, they can control the powers. It gives them a great deal of status in the community. Now, that's the way their system works. So if a company comes out like Rodinia and damages something in the country which belongs to the blood of the child or the umbilical cord of the child or the religious connection between the person and the country, you damage that person. By damaging that person, you damage their place in society. By damaging that place in society, you damage the society itself. Now the whole point of looking after sites and doing clearances is to protect the personal religious rights of individual people in the context of the broader social fabric within which they belong. So it's not a matter of respecting sites because these black people believe in sacred sites and isn't that a load of crap. It's actually, in this landscape, a very real personal political association between people, country and society. When you come onto the land, just be mindful of the fact that the landscape you're working in has religious, political significance to living people who have a living culture. And it's a very vibrant force within their society. So keep low key, keep that in mind, do your job. Don't go anywhere that you're not allowed to go, and all will be well.
The land is a source of life. Land is a life to us. We live in the land. If the land is terminated or land is destroyed, where can we live, Where can we live?
We'd like to take this opportunity to extend our thanks to the Maralinga Jarrattja people for being involved in this induction and taking the time to talk with us. And to Scott Kane for providing his intimate insights into the relationship between the MT people and the lands. Please keep in mind that as you come onto the MT lands, the fundamental concern is one of respect. You need to treat the landowners and the land as you would expect to be treated in your own home. The rules of the land are simple and easy to follow. Don't bring alcohol onto the lands. Don't be rude to people you meet on the lands. Drive safely and carefully on the lands. Help people if they are in need on the lands. Don't drive off designated tracks and remain within cleared work areas, and do not venture away from or conduct work in any uncleared areas. Be restrained and respectful in your inquiries about the MT people and their lands. Behave like a visitor with a job to do, not like a tourist. We ask that you would take the time to read the Aboriginal Lands and Culture section in your Black Book for more information about the MT people and their lands. While you're working on site, please be aware that if you have any questions about the places you go or the things you see, that the appropriate person to ask about your inquiry is the person in charge. They will pass your query on to the appropriate person and find an answer for you. Once again, please turn to the end of your Black Book and take a few moments to answer the questions that appear on the screen. Once you have completed these, resume the presentation or replay if you need to find an answer to any of your questions.